Hello everyone, in today's episode we will be going in depth and looking at another great and underappreciated monster, the Lizardfolk.
Yeah, this neutral but frightening and misunderstood humanoid with a penchant for human flesh can be just the thing to add to your arsenal of goodies to throw at your players. I'm Eugene.
And I'm Eddie, and welcome to another episode of
Middle-Aged Barbarians. This is the Halloween edition.
Yeah.
Anyway, here on Middle-Aged Barbarians, we like to cover a wide range of topics, from tips and tricks on how to run your games, class and monster analysis, media and adventure reviews, and news updates. So whether you're new to the RPG scene, or a seasoned player, an aspiring DM, or a jaded veteran like us,
Stick around to watch this pair of guys be barbaric and tear your boredom to shreds.
sorry,
That's cool.
clang clang.
Clank, clank.
I'm so excited. This is I think the first time we actually try and do a Halloween episode. So I'm glad we got into costume.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, you clearly are a knight. What I try to do is kind of be like a phantasmal bandito, like you said in English.
Phantasmal bandito.
Yeah, since I had a sarape in the proper color, I mean gray, like deadly gray, so that's what it is. But I think I also kind of look like an evil panda, so I'll go with either one of them. Speaking of not so evil panda,
Lizardfolk.
Lizardfolk, yeah.
Not pandas at all.
Not pandas at all, not mammals.
Do you use lizardfolks often?
Kind of funnily, one of my favorite characters, my favorite NPCs I ever made, and I didn't even get to use him, was a Lizardfolk. But I tried to go way against the grain with him. He was a Lizardfolk monk.
Ah.
Which, I mean, it was way before we had Dragonborn, which Dragonborns now make more sense as monks. But yeah, it was kind of the idea, having this lizard thing similar to dragons and so forth. But no, not really. I mean, I have used him a little bit, but I kind of feel slightly, since my players tend to be mortar hobos, it kind of feels bad because they're not really evil. They're just different.
See, that's something that I know they were described as neutral, but I've always seen them as evil. And I think I know where the confusion is, but I'll mention that when we get into like the additions. Pop culture, Lizardfolk. What comes to mind?
Well, first of all, reptilians, like alien reptilians, but come to less. But that role is usually occupied by Nagas. But Lizardfolk kind of makes sense to think of them like an ancient empire that became barbaric, and those are the survivors of the ancient Lizardfolk empire.
Well, I remember what was that show called? V?
Exactly. V
was like they had the old one, and then they made a remake like maybe a decade ago, which isn't that new.
Yeah, that makes us feel so old.
But those were like space Lizardfolk.
Space Lizardfolk, yeah.
I don't know. I think like historical figures, I don't think there are.
Yeah, no. It kind of came to be. They seem really like pulpy. They kind of started to be something similar to Lizardfolk from the old pulps, like Doc Savage and so forth.
No, I know that they were on Star Trek. I wrote down that there was one's called the Gorks.
Oh, the Gorks, yeah, they're the main villains on the new show. What's the name of the show? Is Horizon, something like that. It's really good.
It's the Gorks.
The Gorks, yeah, but they're kind of mysterious. But they kind of look like velociraptors, not so like in the old ones. The old one was like a guy with a suit, and I mean I can't complete the difference here.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get a list of images for our editor to put up for you guys here. I mean, one of my favorite, and it's obviously a Lizardfolk from D&D, is from the Goblin Slayer anime, who is literally called Shaman, he's from a Lizardfolk tribe, and he's traveling with Goblin Slayer and all the other.
Oh, that's cool. Like he's kind of the
ambassadors.
Cleric or so.
They're all kind of mixed. He's like a fighter druid kind of mix.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is kind of cool. He likes to eat cheese, which I find interesting because reptiles do not lactate. No matter how many big-bosomed Lizardfolk femmes you can find online.
They don't make milk, yeah.
They don't lactate. They make eggs.
Yeah, they have eggs, and yeah, that was...
They're not mammals.
Yeah, they're not mammals. It works differently.
And, I mean, I know that there's like an equivalent of like a Bigfoot, but down south in the U.S.
Of a lizard folks?
of like a lizard man in the swamps and stuff. And
Oh, yeah, kind of like Killer Croc from Batman.
yeah, something like that. And there is a movie that came out when I was looking up stuff. It came out in 2023, and it's called The Legend of Lizard Man. I have not seen it. I will watch it soon.
Yeah, sounds cool. And of course, we have to talk about the most important lizard folk we have around here.
Oh, we have a local legend, if any of you are in the know, called the Lizard Girl that usually shows up at the yearly fair.
Here in Ishmael, it's hilarious. It has like, you're not supposed to take pictures because it's so secretive. Yeah, we'll put the picture here. So
We'll look one up and send it. You guys can check it out. It's half
hilarious.
girl, half lizard.
All hilarious.
Yeah, it's more like an alligator.
It's more like an alligator with. You'll see it, guys.
Yeah.
It's funny.
All right, so if we go back, I mean, lizard folk or lizard man, as it was known at the beginning, is one of the original monsters.
Similar to Knowles, right? It's kind of.
I mean, everything is everything in a way. They've been there forever. I really don't know any new things, but anyway, yeah, they were there from the beginning. And again, from the origin concept, they were neutral. They always lived like in semi-aquatic swamp kind of areas,
Marshlands and so forth.
And here I'm going to try to not make so much noise with my pauldrons. Yeah, I mean, they were always described the same way. They're big humanoid figures. They usually have like a dinosaur, crocodile-y, lizard-type head, a long tail. They're usually like 7 to 8 feet tall with the extra tail.
Really
And-
good swim speed.
Yeah, they're good swimmers, and they're tribal. That's like kind of the stuff that's carried on through all the editions. Originally, they were called lizardmen, and I think where my confusion was with their alignment was there are certain leaders or chieftains
That
or
are evil.
shamans that are evil. And I always thought that was interesting, why the more powerful ones would be corrupted by evil. And
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, it has something to do with certain demons that kind of influence they gave them like blessings to those powerful ones, and that's kind of the justification.
In fact, the way they manage their gods and their deities and the lore throughout the editions is kind of interesting, and we'll get there. One thing I thought was kind of cool, I mean, first, second, and I want to say third edition are pretty much, they're the same. They're usually a tribe. There's a lizard king or a lizard shaman.
They make
And-
emphasis in using the terrain when you have adventures with them. You're kind of joining the marshlands. They have a lot of advantages from being in the marshes, the swim speed. They have bonuses for hiding, stuff like that, right?
They're usually smart. Like they'll do either, maybe not an ambush, but they'll be tactical in the way they hunt. They do, I think they're omnivores.
Yes, they can eat vegetables, but, they
But
prefer
in the descriptions, it says that they prefer the meat of humanoids.
humanoids. They like
specifically
it's kind of a
humans.
delicacy. Yeah, but you can negotiate with them. There are also some, and well, in third, where they kind of expanded a lot of lore, they said that usually they negotiated like with orcs and certain evil races, even though they themselves were not evil per se.
But they're good to deal with anybody as long as they get what they want, they need, I guess.
Yeah.
Third edition did describe it as lizard folk living in a patriarchal society in which the most powerful member rules the others. Shamans offer advice but rarely become leaders. And their most primordial concern is just surviving.
Surviving, defending their young. There was
Yeah.
also so that they gave a lot of emphasis, like finding lizardfolk eggs and damaging them. Bad idea.
Now, third edition, also interesting, is when they stop speaking their own language and they become
Draconic, right?
they become a draconic speaking species, race. And I think this is kind of like where the patron deity first appears. Let me just check and make sure. Yeah, because it's a goddess. It's an androgynous being called Semuanya. Semuanya. We'll put a picture here for you if I can find one. Although I think there is like an original drawing in first edition. No, I think the goddess was around in first edition because I remember seeing it's like a red emblem with the lizard folk in front. It was kind of an interesting thing. I'll see if we can find any current art. Fourth edition, I think, is kind of cool because then they split them up into two
different kinds.
sub races or two subspecies, black scales and green scales. And I think like the black scales are the more brutish.
More evil, more for conflict, and you can negotiate
Yeah.
with the green scales.
And then the green scales were more, yeah, they were more like merchants or tradesmen or just not as nasty as the
That's
black
it,
scaled
yeah.
ones.
And
And
they had conflict between them, if I'm not mistaken. The black scales tried to dominate the green scales or something like that.
yeah, and they also added something here with a different deity. Let's go straight into the deities because I think that's the coolest part. Because I mean, fifth edition goes back and they kind of just they're the same. I think there's one part that I found very interesting that calls them territorial xenophobes, which they kind of make them not as much into trading with other races, fiercely territorial, and you know they'll kill you if you walk into their territory. But the deities, the one I mentioned was called Simwania, and Simwania is the chief deity worshipped by Lizardfolk. Its symbol is a single reptile egg. Its sacred animal is, guess what it is?
A lizard?
An alligator, yeah. And it appears as a large lizard folk warrior of indeterminate gender wielding a great club with sharp shells at the tip. Sometimes they call her the breeder, sometimes they call him the watcher or the seeker.
That's interesting.
So it is. And I mean, it does kind of play with certain amphibious animals or creatures
That can change gender. Yeah.
that can change depending on what they need or how things are going. Now, they say the great bog where Simwania dwells can be found on the neutral plane of concordant opposition. You know what that is?
No, but
I had never heard of it. Apparently, the concordant domain of the Outlands, also known as
the Outlands. Yeah, of course.
the
yeah.
Godlands or concordant
It's like this
opposition.
savannah that's really savage, and it's more it's nature. It's like the druids plane, the plane of the druids.
Yeah, so that's where you can find Simwania if you really want to find them.
Them, I guess, would be the proper pronoun, right?
That's what I said then.
No, you said him. No.
Oh.
Oh, sorry, I misheard.
That's okay. Them, him, her. It's all right.
I don't think
mind.
they mind. Yeah.
Now it's kind of weird because there was a mate called Kekwala, which apparently was Simwanya's mate. They were both hermaphroditic entities, both filling every social role. While Simwanya was concerned with only survival and propagation, Kekwala was distracted by more abstract and cerebral matters. So that was kind of interesting. And then there is, and this is I think where those black scales
Come in.
Yeah, because they introduce a nemesis called Sesinek.
Oh yes, his neck. Yeah, of course.
Sesnek, which was a Tanari demon lord. You heard about Sesnek?
Yeah. The Nagas also have dealings with him. And some evil reptilian races have dealings with snakes.
Sesnek. They say it takes the form of a six-armed lizard king with vestigial greenish-brown wings.
Yeah, and Nagas, Mariliths as well. Mariliths have something to do with him as well. Mariliths are a sort of demon that looks like that. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I also trying to remember like fabricated campaigns or pre-made stuff that we've played. I don't really
Seen Lizardfolk?
I
Or
don't really see
sometimes
that
like as random encounters, but they weren't kind of given them emphasis. And it has a lot of opportunities because, I mean, they're tribal. They kind of have this, they could have this kind of really deep culture, like some tribal societies, like their own myths, their own things.
I think in fourth you could have him as a playable character. I don't know if it was from fourth or even from third edition.
From third with the level adjustment.
With the level adjustment.
They
for
had,
the,
they
for the
had
challenge
an
rating.
overwhelming bonus to strength. So that was kind of...
But you could still play them, so they would be neutral. They would be more mercenary, merchant type characters.
Yeah, and they were kind of a lot of their. I mean, it was implied, at least since third, that they were kind of a lot of more about nurture rather than nature. They were, depending on the society they grew in, they would change. And I heard some settings that they used them as the survivors of a fallen empire. So back in the day, they were the dominant empire, and then came the mammals, and everything changed.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that could work. I mean, so they could have myths about them being their glory days, similar to giants. Giants also have that backstory, certain races of giants.
So now, if we have this interesting tool at our disposal, which are Lizardfolk, what ideas or which ways would you incorporate them into an adventure or a campaign? How would you like to use them? Or
Well, first is enemies, and then enemies that could possibly become allies would be the way I would like to use them. To like, you enter in conflict with them, but there's a way for you to turn around the conflict and have them be part of your allies. I mean, they give you a lot of opportunities for that. Also, they have, since they are very territorial, maybe where they are is a spot where you have to get something, and you have to manage in many different possible ways.
I'm actually working them into the campaign that I'm working with my new players. It's kind of a side quest, but I'm having... So the main idea is that in the southern part of the continent, there is I'd say maybe an elder, a great worm, black dragon. And one of the offspring of this dragon has branched out and is looking to form its own territory. So I'm having it set up in some mountains, actually to the west, southwest of where they are now, and kind of like deform the land around it, turn it into a swampy, boggy kind of part of the mountains. And it's going to entrap, put into servitude lizardfolk and kobolds, which I think are a great synergy. Thematically, I find them appropriate.
Yeah, the reptilian thing works.
I mean, it works. So he's kind of forcing them to work with him into finding, there's a map that he wants to find that he's heard because he captured a gnome, and this gnome is going to betray the people that have the map, but these people are actually family members of the player character, or one of the player characters.
Oh, that's cool.
So they're actually traveling from like the first area of the game where I had them, and they want loot, they want power, so they're going out into the world, and they actually planned on stopping by their
family,
that character's family, to chill out, say hi, grab supplies and stuff. So they will be ravaged by these groups of kobold and lizardfolk.
But that's interesting because since they're being pressed into servitude, you can actually do what I said. You can actually convince one of them to.
Maybe.
Maybe. I mean, if your skill checks are good, or the players don't act like irrational psychopaths and kill everything.
I don't know about that. So yeah, that's kind of like the way I'm working them into the kind of like a side quest, a little flavor there with the lizards.
Yeah, that's cool. They kind of, yeah, but I'm guessing a little bit. I don't know how you feel about that because obviously it comes a comparison with the Dragonborn, which is a more recent playable race. So I don't know how you feel about that. That kind of how they fit into different roles.
Well, I think that maybe like if this young black dragon was finding its own territory, I don't know why there would be Dragonborn there. I mean, maybe not. I find this to be more of a natural progression of, I found this spot with the swamp and with these creatures already here, and I'm going to make them do my bidding kind of a thing.
Oh, so yeah, the nature adventure. That's where the Lizardfolk make more sense rather than the Dragonborn, which seem a little bit more urban.
Yeah, it seems like the Dragonborn are a little maybe more civilized, more evolved than Lizardfolk.
Yeah, because back in the day, they used to have slight penalties to intelligence. Not very big, but yeah.
But those aren't around anymore.
No, and they usually, and as spellcasters, they usually prefer to be druids. Or the, how was it called? Adept, the NPC classes, which they never redid after third.
No. But I mean, all in all, if you want to go out and get a savage band of starving lizard folk that were maybe chased out of their swamp, and actually that would be kind of interesting. Maybe the players are contacted or they run into this group that's trying to be attacked or enslaved, and they help them
not be enslaved,
yeah, and take out the threat or the tribing faction or something, and then they become like a source of trading or goods or
sort of semi-allies. Yeah, I mean that's what I like about them. They're kind of fun. Yeah.
They're very versatile.
They're very versatile, and yeah, like you said, they haven't been used as much, and they don't have as much baggage. Although nature is the theme,
and they can also be very, very nasty creatures.
Yeah, they have some very interesting things because, Killer Croc from Batman does come to mind. They can be very agile, very sneaky in their proper terrain, not in every terrain, and mess you up real bad because they can do nasty things with their natural attacks.
With their big, nasty teeth.
And claws, yeah.
But none nastier than the girl from Ishmael.
None nastier than that, though. So, that's the end of the video. If you haven't already, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel. And please, feel free to leave us your comments, suggestions, and questions below.
Yeah. Also, come follow us on our other social media like Instagram and TikTok. And you can come chat with us on the Discord channel over on the ND Hobby server. Links in the description below.
And as always, remember to
Rage
rage responsibly.
responsibly.
We'll see you in the next episode.